Broadcasting from the Blanchardstown Centre, this is Phoenix FM.
This is 92.5 Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Hey everybody, it's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Darrow O'Connor.
Yo, what's going on? It's Leon Slater, and you are listening to Darrow O'Connor on the Wrestling Rewind. You get me?
This is Impact Wrestling superstar Cowboy James Storm.
This is Jeff Jarrett, the King of the Mountain.
I'm Tom Hannafin from TNA Wrestling. You're listening to the Wrestling Rewind.
And if you're not, sorry about your damn luck.
The Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling.
Hello folks, it is Tuesday here on Phoenix 92.5 FM. My name is Darrow O'Connor and you're listening to the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling. And boy, WWE make it very hard to beat that podcast on the road to WrestleMania, which again, I love what you said, Christopher, last week, where the road to WrestleMania is full of polls. And some of the polls are starting to get filled. Some of them are even getting bigger. This week, of course, we have a lot to get through. We have the news. We're going to talk some AEW, saw some TNA, and we have a retro review going all the way back to WrestleMania 1, which I actually haven't seen end to end ever until I sat down and watched it. And we have thoughts and opinions on that as well. But I am not alone. I am joined by Mr. Christopher Fanning. Christopher, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Yeah, those potholes are getting filled, but it still looks like a Louisiana highway out here.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it. I've never been to Louisiana, but I'll take your word for it. Holy hell. Some of them are getting filled, but some of them are just gargantuan. News breaking as well that like the ticket sales aren't as good as WWE want. There's like a ban on watching it in Vegas if you're not at the arena. Some really, really strange stuff that's happening. But then at the same time, they're doing deals on VIP meet and greets. But then you have the 10 grand Cody Rhodes bus experience. So I don't know what's happening with WWE.
It's sold out, by the way.
Oh, God. You know what? Listen. If you're one of those people, one, you have too much money. And two, talk to someone because that's silly.
We actually talked about that on my podcast this past week, so that's fun. You're funny you bring that up.
Okay, go on. Well, look, my thoughts on it are probably very well documented on the show. What do you think about this? I need to get into the mindset, Christopher, of someone who would pay money for that. Sorry, not even like some money, like $10,000 for that.
I mean, I could think of better things I could do with 10 grand. I mean, no, not even Cody's. You know, if it was Becky and Seth's RV, I might consider it. But even then, I'm like, dude, 10 grand, that's not worth the money. Here's the living room, here's the bathroom, here's the bedroom. Okay, thank you, nice knowing you. No, incorrect. I never would spend that much money like that.
Listen, 10 grand, it's not a deposit for a house, but it's definitely like a car. It's a good holiday. It's, you know, a couple of weeks in Vegas if you spend it outright. That's obscene. That's an obscene amount of money. Now, look, I can understand some people going, well, look, if it's a front row ticket for WrestleMania and you got to meet like The Undertaker and, you know, that kind of stuff, I could be like, okay, maybe four grand, fair enough. You know, you could definitely make that worthwhile. Just meeting Cody, it's like he's not even going to close the show. He's closing night one. Like, different if you got to hang out with like Roman Reigns, you know. Even still, like, you could be like, well, he's the main event. It's like, yeah, it's just...
They're doing something similar in Clash of the Castle in Italy, where if you get the VIP treatment, you get to make pasta with a WWE superstar. Where do I sign up for that?
So stupid.
Where
is that in Milan or is it in Turin?
I do not remember off the top of my head. I just know it's in Italy somewhere.
I think it's in Turin. So that's northern Italy. Which, yeah, I mean, it's actually going to be more expensive up there because Northern Italy is not as cheap as Southern Italy, but you'd be able to get around a little bit better. I still couldn't... I watched the Olympics there, obviously, and that was in Milan, and that was put together quite well, so I don't doubt that it'll be a good event. If the prices are that high as they are now, it's like, no way. And, you know, the US crowd's fair enough. Like, you guys kind of have that culture of things being, like, insanely expensive. In Europe, it's a little bit different, you know, like I don't really see how you would get Europeans paying absorbent fees like that. You know, like obviously you're paying now like what, a grand for like seats. I would be interested to see how high that would go. You know, because if you have WrestleMania, some people are going to be like, look, we traveled for this. Some people in America are like, right, I don't need to get flights over, or if I do, they're small domestic flights. There is probably like more pool of money to invest in, but not invest, to waste on WWE exorbitant experiences. I will be interested to see when it's in a European setting, when that culture isn't there, where it's like, yeah, we'll just drop 10 grand. I don't think something like that would sell out. And particularly with pasta, it's like, look, I've lived in Italy and I go to Italy all the time. I don't know how the Italians will take if you're like, yeah, let's some rando from WWE make pasta. You know, that could only end badly. That seems very, very short-sighted. It's a weird thing WWE are doing. You know, I was listening to a podcast. It could have been Wrestling Soup or one of them. It seems to be like a lot of these decisions that WWE are making are like decisions that sound good in a boardroom, look good on a deck. They're like, yeah, this. And it doesn't factor in the reality. Actually, it wasn't Wrestling Soup. It was a video on how wrestling lost its way, how wrestling moved from events and areas to just being a soulless product. It was actually really, really good. If I can find the link, I will drop it in the description below. But basically, the whole thesis of it was that like wrestling was built in arenas. Like, Christopher, you can probably pull 4 or 5 of them off the top of your head. Most people listening probably will. Like the ECW arena, Madison Square Gardens, the arena in Chicago, the American Airlines arena. Like, they're ones that have remained, but a lot of them are just gone and they don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And that's kind of part of this, where like WWE, they roll out these experiences that are very, that's a very corporate thing. You know, come into my bus and we'll do this and it'll be really safe and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's so disgustingly corporate, you know, for 10 grand. And I think it's the same with the pasta. It's like, what's this got to do with wrestling? Like, if you wanted to do a cultural exchange with wrestling, you're in Turin. You know, it's a good area. You can just travel like 2 hours up the road and go anywhere else in Italy. And it's just lowest common denominator stuff. And it really is starting to irk me with WWE.
Not just that, but how much of that money is Cody actually getting? Or is that TKO taking like a big chunk of that money?
Exactly. That's exactly it. You know, this looks really good on a deck. And they're like, yeah, we will make a lot of revenue and screw these suckers. And that's what it really feels like. It's like, listen, if you're going to if you're going to WrestleMania, you're already paying way over what you should be paying, particularly for a show like this. But then you're going to throw 10. Look, if that makes people happy, look, I'm all for it. But at the same time, how much money does TKO need? Like, where is the line, right? And that's another thing that was brought up in that video, where it's like, instead of having like families come, buy a shirt, be able to watch the show, it's like, it's a status thing, you know? How many people was it offhand? Was it like 20 people? 15?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
I think it was very limited anyway, but like, who those people will be quite interesting, because yeah, look, you might get a normal person, you probably get an influencer, and then you could just get a celebrity, and it's just like, well, what's the whole point? Like, Cody is already famous. He doesn't need to be more famous in the WWE mindset. It's just weird. It's a weird thing to do, but like, I've seen, there's also the other side of the coin, and I will go to bat to WWE defend this. There is like the whole, there's no such thing as bad publicity. And I remember when TNA was really in the depths, like the depths of irrelevance, or trying to struggle to be what they were trying to be. I remember going to a Impact Wrestling house show in Dublin, and they had a pop star. It was a pop star, or it was a kids TV show guy. Anyway, it was someone who isn't famous now at all, but they tried to use him for it. And he was Liam Payne or something like that. And they actually put him in a wrestling ring. They set up the feud on a kids TV show that nobody watched, like a local TV show in Ireland, and then paid it off in the ring. Now remember, nobody watched this show who was in attendance. It was a TNA crowd who actually wanted to see TNA or Impact Wrestling, and it just went over like a fart in church. It was awful. But that's what this kind of feels like, where they're like clinging to any kind of relevance. And when I see WWE do this with the whole pasta thing, it's like, stop it. Just give them a good show and they'll come back. You don't need to pander to people. And I don't really understand why WWE, TNA, AEW, any wrestling company does this. Like, it's not like they're going out and cutting like, you're in the north, wear like an Irish jersey or an English jersey and get cheap heat or whatever. You go to Dublin and you're like, Belfast is better. That's cheap heat. Everyone does that. That's just called wrestling. This is just weird, though. This is weird pandering.
I just Googled it. It was 12 spots at just under $10,000 a spot. You get to ride Liberty One, which is what Cody calls his RV. The bus experience is between 15 to 30 minutes.
Oh, my God.
You get a tour of Vegas landmarks with Cody, a gift, a photo op, and some behind-the-scenes access. That is not worth 10 grand to me.
As I said, I stand by my point. If you paid 10 grand for that, I have a bridge to sell you. In fact, too, I'll do a deal. That's so silly. That's just so silly. 10 grand for 15 minutes. Whoa. You know what?
I can't repeat what I said on my podcast and what I would do for a tour. Let's just say I would blow it up, quite literally. I can't repeat the exact words I said because there is some profanity that was used. But
listen,
yeah,
if you're in Vegas and you have 10 grand to just blow
one of the
to a casino, if you just don't care about 10 grand, just go to a casino. You might win and then you could spend it. That is the goofiest nonsense I have ever heard in my life.
But then again, you could lose that 10 grand in less than 30 minutes. So either way, you're still kind of, up in the air about that,
Absolutely. Look, I'm not recommending it. I'm not really a gambling guy. I regularly go to Vegas and I haven't gambled once. And I have no desire to. But the thing about it is, it's like, if you're going to just blow that money, you might as well, go, well, I might have won something. Oh, that's so goofy. Goofy nonsense.
I want a picture with
Cody Rhodes. Oh, listen, I mean, you can just pop that into Google Gemini and put yourself right. It's like, I'm not saying to do that, but
is that Photoshop? No, that's AI.
It's AI. Oh man, look, wait maybe 5 years. He'll be on the convention scene. Just wait. Wait
about it.
Yeah, it's
10 grand. I could go to Ireland probably a month. Oh my God.
You look, 10 grand. You could go pretty much anywhere for a long period of time. I just can't fathom how someone could just drop 10 grand for Cody Rhodes to hang out on a bus for 15 minutes. Listen, oh my God, I'm actually disgusted thinking about that.
Yeah.
It's so terrible. Oh my God. Look, those people that bought it, I hope you have a great time. But, oh my God, disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Okay. Seth Rollins was arrested. Speaking of things that are disgusting, Seth Rollins was arrested on Raw this week. Obviously, it's not a real one. It's a storyline. And the architect was hauled away in handcuffs. So what's going on here? Like, I get it, he's trying to get revenge on Paul Heyman and it's building up the match, but we still don't really know the match that he's going to have. We don't really know his involvement as such. Where do you think they're building to this, Christopher?
I do know, and this dropped earlier in the week, that Braun Breaker is at the Performance Center as we speak. So there's a pretty good chance that he might actually be at WrestleMania.
Is he cleared though?
He's not cleared, but he's I guess getting rid of the ring rust, making sure he's okay, making sure he can do the spots he did, make sure he doesn't re-injure himself. But me personally, I think this is just a wedge between the vision with Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins because, Seth Rollins is, as far back as I can remember, that he's a visionary. And of course, didn't take much to go. What should we call this fashion? Call it the vision. Perfect. So he's upset that somebody stole his idea and ran with it. And I don't blame him. I'd be mad too. But the fact that Paul Heyman put out a restraining order and then talked about his wife, which upset me too, by the way, and then talked about his daughter, which also upset me a little bit. I love Paul Heyman, but I'm like, dude, you went way too far. That's like the whole burying next to your dad stuff that CM Punk said to Roman Reigns. It went a little too far, but if Seth approved it, more power to him. But the fact that Seth attacked Paul, we have a restraining order, you're under arrest. And I'm like, well, you know what? Now Becky and Seth can now have matching mugshot photos in their house somewhere because they've both been arrested on Raw.
Yeah, and I forgot about this. I just didn't commit this memory. Becky was arrested attacking Ronda Rousey, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But
not even a crime. Attacking Ronda should be applauded, not punished. I'm just saying.
Oh my god. Well, look, you know, she's saying a lot of crazy nonsense at the moment, so I don't know. Look, wrestling is weird. When people leave wrestling and when they can't get over WWE, it's more strange. Yeah. So it turns out there is like a wrinkle to this story. So we talked about this last week and weren't really sure what was going on. Because look, nobody really knows what goes on in AEW sometimes, right? It turns out that the Ronda Rousey thing, you're going to love this. I don't know if you heard this or not, but you're going to love this.
I think I have.
Ronda Rousey's debut on AEW was a one-time deal to promote her upcoming MMA fight with Gina Carino.
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
That's what it looks like.
Oh my God. Wow.
Now look, admittedly, I don't watch AEW week to week, right? I watch some of the pay-per-views and I kind of check in when news happens, right? So I'm probably not the best person to talk about it. However, at no point when I was watching that segment, was it communicated to me as the viewer that she wasn't there for one time only, or indeed was she there to promote an MMA fight? She just kind of showed up, looked constipated, and left.
And I hope Gina knocks her out. I really do.
Yeah, well,
I love Gina Carano. I loved her in The Mandalorian. She was also in the Deadpool movie. I love her to death. She's awesome. And there's been talks of her. There's been talks of her playing Wonder Woman in the James Gunn DC universe.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah. She would be much more. She would be a very physical Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, she's from Texas as well. She's not far from you.
Really?
Yeah,
I did not know.
Dallas, Texas.
Oh, well, yeah, that's like 6.5 hours away.
Texas.
Yeah.
To put that in perspective, you drive 6.5 hours in Ireland, you end up in the sea. So, any direction. But yeah, that's like, okay, so here's the goofiness of this, right? So obviously it's an MMA fight, which would make sense, you know, because there's that kind of audience that does kind of watch both. Yeah. But it's on Netflix, which runs WWE.
Yep. There'll be a ton of superstars that are going to be there like, hey, Ronda.
No, but not even that. It's like AEW are the direct competition, and they brought in someone not to like wrestle for them or to like help their product out, to plug her own product, which she didn't. And then when you put two and two together, you get four, which is on Netflix, and you're like, well, why is she promoting it on Netflix? It's just so silly. AEW, you know what? AEW are great because they just get in their own way, and no matter what it is, they just get in their own way. And I just don't understand why no one sat down and said, you know what? Let's explain what's going on. Let's just talk. Maybe think we shouldn't promote something on Netflix because we're on HBO Max and Prime Video. They're very different things.
Not just that, but Ronda has been very vocal about her disdain for Dana White and the UFC.
Yeah.
I'm like, again, you're going to be on a product that is TKO ran on Netflix. I'm like, oh, just think before you speak. Yeah,
it makes no sense. It's such a, when I saw this, I was like, there's no way this is real. There's no way they were that short-sighted to think, oh, we'll bring her in and pop her rating, which it didn't, you know, or a boy or whatever. It's like, it didn't. And then she's gone. It's like, what are you doing? She didn't say anything. So silly. So silly.
It's probably better you don't even give her the microphone. Just treat her like Jade Cargill. Do not give her a microphone. Just let her go out there and do her thing and then leave.
Do her thing. She just walked out and looked constipated. Unless that's what her thing is. But here, it gets worse for AEW, right? So one of my favorite things about AEW, like legitimately, is Toni Storm. I love Toni Storm. I think Toni Storm is one of the best characters in wrestling. Full stop, right? She's brilliant. Yeah. She really is. She's gone from AEW for a year. So either she's severely injured, she's just taken some time off, or she's pregnant. We don't really know. We haven't got that story yet, but that is a huge blow to AEW. That's kind of catastrophic to that women's division. Now, when I heard the story initially, and obviously, you know, the whole Ronda Rousey thing, I was like, oh, okay, they're setting up for a feud with Ronda and Toni Storm down the line. No, just gone. Just gone. Just, okay. Bye, man.
I will say WWE did fumble Toni Storm because they probably didn't see the potential that she. Then again, AEW. I haven't watched AEW in a while, but I can say that when I was watching, I was not impressed with the women's division at all. It was very lackluster compared to what we were seeing in WWE. The men's division was great. Mm-hmm. A lot of superstars on there, but the women's division then is not what it is now. That was even before Mercedes Moné showed up too. So
yeah, well, look, Mercedes Moné kind of is what it is. You know, she's still doing her shtick. You know, but I think like the women there like Britt Baker was fantastic as well. But like there are just women when they click in AEW, it's a whole new level. I really like when Athena was there. Obviously she's doing stuff with Ring of Honor, but I just think that like the AEW women have to nearly work harder because the match quality is so good throughout the whole lot. And look, I will go back to, that's a double-edged sword. If everything is 5 stars, nothing is. So if you're watching every match being great, it really doesn't matter. But with that being said, Dynasty is coming up and Kenny Omega is finally going for a world title again. I really want Kenny Omega to win because one, I like Kenny Omega, and two, I hate MJF because, and not like, ooh, boo, it's like I'm sick of him. He just does the same thing over and over and over again. And it's like, you know, I was there at Forbidden Door, and when him and the cowboy lad walked out, I fell asleep. I was literally asleep when fireworks were going off. You know, now I was a little bit drunk, but still, that doesn't matter. I was very tired because I just called 6 hockey games beforehand. So it was late. We were I called 6 hockey games, got on a plane, start drinking with Martin. We were covering the show, and then I just kind of KO'd and then woke up when the cage was coming down. So, you know, I just have no interest in MJF as a champion or a wrestler. But Kenny Omega as a world champion, hell yeah. Let's do it. I think that's what AEW needs.
Has he won it before? I don't remember if he's ever won it before.
I know he was involved in, because at one point he was the belt collector, right? So he had like the AEW belt, he had the TNA belt, and he was their inaugural Triple Crown winner. So he has actually won everything, but it's been a long time. It's been 4 years. It's been 4 years since he actually was kind of in the mix. You know, he had diverticulitis and stuff like that as well. He's for me, and look, again, I'm not the AEW target market, right? But for me, when I think of AEW, he is the AEW champion. That's who you need. You need someone like Kenny Omega, right? Where it's like, he was big in Japan, great wrestler, is going to deliver the AEW matches. MJF, Miz, he's just a Miz. He's just a Miz. Yeah. And I don't understand this rager that people have for him where he's like, oh, he's a great worker. He's a great guy. Like, no, he does the same thing. He insults people that he works with and then has a very poor match. And sometimes there's blood. Okay, you know what he is? He's the Miz with blood. There you go.
Didn't CM Punk in a promo a long time ago compare him? Is he pretty much say he was a less popular?
There you go. What's a tell me when I'm telling lies? Yeah, he, and that's it. And I mean, watching him with the world title, like, he doesn't even carry himself like a champion, you know? And the cowboy lad, lamest gimmick.
From what I've heard, when he's out and about, he's quote unquote in character. I'm like, maybe he's just a jerk. Maybe that's how he is, you know?
That's just him, you know? It's like when Martin was on the show, we used to joke that Vince McMahon, the character was just screaming for help, where he'd just tell people exactly who he was, and everyone just thought he was the best character in the world. It's like, maybe it's the same thing. You know, maybe he's just telling you who he is. But look, I have to say, from what I've seen here, it is kind of like AEW, in a lot of ways, is kind of leveling itself out and starting to kind of get its house in order. But then it does some goofy stuff, like getting MJF away from if they get the belt off him, I'll be like, right, we're back on track. Getting Cowboy Man away from anything below the lower mid card, perfect. The Ronda Rousey thing, that's a spectacular own goal. That's wild to me. And look, they have to rebuild, right? So it's not a bad stage for AEW to be in. But I will keep an eye on Dynasty, and if it's worth watching, we'll watch it. Before we move on to WrestleMania. TNA has a huge pay-per-view, had a huge pay-per-view coming up for their month. It was TNA Sacrifice, and Jeff Hardy actually won over Brian Mears, so that was pretty cool. And at the moment, TNA have their big system arc, so the system is kind of like a mix between the NWO and it's a mix between the NWO and DX, where like the wrestlers that you wouldn't normally assume would be pushing things, but then they have the big dominant wrestlers as well to just kind of take over. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool arc that they're doing. One I haven't really seen in a while, but it does cap off their run in New Orleans, which they've kind of promoted. So if you guys were interested in that, definitely do watch it. But we also have a couple of interviews from TNA talent talking about that run. So TNA Sacrifice, really good show. It's always a good show. I mean, whenever TNA do their pay-per-views, they really, really seem to hit home, you know? So I'd also call out the world title match, pretty decent. The X Division match, absolutely phenomenal. Leon Slater, yeah, he's looking to be a generational talent, not only in TNA, but also when he goes to WWE as well. And definitely, if you haven't seen the latest clash between Moose and Eddie Edwards, those guys just work. They're just a great pairing. Not the best match that they've had, but definitely that feud, I think, is TNA's bread and butter. So yeah, that's kind of it. Like, it is a pretty decent show, totally worth your time. But TNA are also in a rebuilding phase at the moment as well. Christopher, does anything there stick out to you as something you'd want to check out as an outsider?
I do want to kind of go back to you talked about Jeff Hardy for a minute. I'd read something somewhere that WWE had approached him to go in the Hall of Fame as a singles competitor, and he declined it because he felt that he was more deserving to go in there with his brother Matt. So he declined it and was waiting for them to put the Hardy Boys in the Hall of Fame together.
Yeah.
I don't remember if they are or not. They're not yet. I'm sure it's coming.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good point. Like, I wouldn't class Jeff Hardy in the WWE as worthy of being in the Hall of Fame by himself.
I think that's when he had that singles run is when he was having a lot of the trouble he was having.
Yeah, the drugs issue was huge.
Drug issues. So, and even when he went to TNA and was working with AJ Styles, there's a promo. I'm not even sure if it's a work or a shoot, but AJ just goes off on Jeff. He's like, I could see it in your eyes. You just weren't there. And
but the Victory Road thing in 2009, where he was against Sting and Sting had to roll him up because, roll him up because he was so out of his face.
Definitely, he's seen some pretty dark times, but I hope he's back on the straight and narrow with his brother, and they're doing great things at TNA now.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I would say that in WWE, the Hardy Boys are definitely Hall of Fame. Matt and Jeff definitely deserve to be in there.
100%.
But not individually. Like, there's no Matt. Like, I really like the Matt V1. You know, that was great. Some of the stuff he's done with the Delete and all that kind of stuff. But like, the most creative stuff, including the broken Matt Hardy, that's TNA.
Yeah.
And the same with Jeff's. Like, if you haven't seen Jeff Hardy's work in TNA, I'm not talking about current stuff. Current stuff is great, but his actual matches that he had, obviously not the Victory Road one, but like his matches with Abyss in 2005, his matches with Sabu, the runs when he was clean and when he was there to work, absolutely phenomenal. Like, so those two lads fall into the same thing as Kurt Angle. I don't really believe Kurt Angle should be in the Hall of Fame in the WWE. Because,
really?
Yeah, because his best work, he should be, but his best work isn't in WWE. It's in TNA. Kurt Angle's best matches that he's ever had are in TNA. Without a shadow of a doubt. Like, don't get me wrong, he had some great feuds with Benoit and Jericho and the SmackDown 6. There was a ceiling to Kurt Angle in WWE. In TNA, I mean, like, I'll dig out some matches that we can watch, some shows. He's just doing, he did a moonsault off the top of a cage. He did a running, a running flip off the stage onto Abyss. Like, Kurt Angle in TNA is off the chain wild.
I've always said that Kurt Angle, once he shaved his head, became a whole different person.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, when you watch his stuff in WWE, there's a ceiling to it. It's still very good. And look, people could disagree and say, look, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Absolutely. But he's not really, he's not your Jerichos. He's not your Stone Cold Steve Austins. He's not your... He was a very cool part of the Attitude Era into the Ruthless Aggression, but he wasn't one of those names. TNA, different story. Absolutely just an animal. Like, his feud with Samoa Joe, some of the best matches you'll ever see. Absolutely. We will actually... you know what? For people who don't believe me, we'll jump in the time machine and look at some Kurt Angle, because Christopher, you absolutely have to, man. I think it's a must. But it's the same with Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy's best stuff was as a solo competitor is in TNA. Jeff's there too, and there are a bunch of names. Some of the ECW guys as well, like Raven's kind of everywhere, but like, his TNA run was great, and he's in the TNA Hall of Fame now as well as a result. But from one hand, yeah, it's silly for TNA to have their own Hall of Fame, kind of, but also not really. Like, they've just been there for so long, and they've built so much with their tape library. Eventually that's going to be seen for what it is, where it's just like, yeah, they really did some phenomenal stuff. You have AJ Styles, right? So some of the best matches he's ever had were also there. So, I mean, that's why I was always like, WWE should buy them to be able to re-release it, but now their working relationship, you're seeing a lot more. But yeah, definitely, folks, if you're like, oh my god, I can't believe Dara said this, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, go back and watch TNA Kurt Angle, and you'll be like, oh, I totally get it. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, but he's not that guy just yet. Like, he's not like a headliner class or whatever. I just don't see it. It's like he was getting there, and when he came back, fair enough. And I love Kurt Angle, but his TNA stuff is just the best. Speaking of WWE Hall of Fames, though, right? We haven't actually talked about this at all, Chris. This year so far, I'm going to list them out, and then you can chime in. Stephanie McMahon. It looks like she's the class headliner with AJ Styles, which is a weird one. We have a Demolition, Axe and Smash, totally deserved. This has been something they've wanted for a very, very long time.
Overdue.
Absolutely. A Dennis Rodman in the celebrity wing, and this kind of, this kind of ties in. This kind of ties in with the next guy, Sid Vicious. Or Psycho Sid. Obviously, look, he's a big part of WCW, huge part of WCW, and not just for breaking his leg in the most horrific thing. That's if you guys haven't listened to the review of the show we did many years ago on that, I'd encourage you to go through the archive and see that. And then Bad News Brown, the most recent legacy inductee to the WWE Hall of Fame. Christopher, go for it, sir.
Where do I begin? I know people are upset. Cena just retired. Why isn't he in there? He's letting AJ have his moment. He's not gonna. At least I hope that's the case. He's gonna, take a year away from WWE. Next year he'll come back, be in the Hall of Fame. He'll be the headliner. Stephanie should be the headliner. I mean, everything she's done with the Women's Revolution and just the stuff she did in the Attitude Era, and even after with Jericho and with The Rock, and of course, the McMahon Helmsley regime back in the day when they pretty much ran everything. Deserved. Dennis Rodman, might as well put David Arquette in there too. At least David Arquette won a title.
How come of it? Well, okay. Dennis Rodman did win a title. He won a tag team title.
Oh, did he really? Wow. That tells you how much I was watching Monday Night Nitro back in the day. I just don't get it. Psycho Sid I get because he was in both WWE and WCW. As a matter of fact, he did win the belt from Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series 96.
Wait, no. Sorry, I'm wrong. Wait, no. It wasn't the tag team title. He won the Hulk Hogan Celebrity Wrestling Tournament Champion. That was it. That's the one.
It must be the 24/7 championship at this point.
I just wasn't sure. I thought it was a tag team title, but no, I'm thinking of when Pac-Man Jones was in
Demolition
in TNA.
I think WWF in the 80s tag team division, Demolition is always top of my list.
Yeah, well, look, some people said Demolition are, a knockoff of the Road Warriors or whatever. And look, kind of, sort of, but still, I mean, they're that tag team where it's like, you can't have a WWE Hall of Fame without Demolition, right? They are just a staple. And it's weird that it took them 50 years.
Yeah.
It's awful when you think about it. They should have been there way sooner.
Not only that, but if I'm not mistaken, Smash was also the Repo Man in the golden era of WWF.
Yeah.
So come on.
But also, but if you think about the time that they came up in, it was the Hart Foundation. They're in there with Powers of Pain in the Crockett Promotions, and they're also like mixing up there with like huge names in between the Federation years and the New Generation as well. So the fact that they were able to build out and carve their niche there, that really says a lot. Like, and it wasn't just one era. It was, a lot of kids grew up with Demolition, a lot of wrestling, and they were. It just kind of made me a little bit sad when I think about it, because it's just like this should have been done a lot sooner. And apparently, and the question I have for you actually, like, do you think this was a Vince McMahon thing? Do you think this was TKO wanting it, or is it just kind of like, well, it's bad timing?
I think it might have been a little bit with what happened with the Ultimate Warrior and Bruno Sammartino. There was a little bit of bad blood maybe there that Triple H kind of had to go, hey guys, new management, come on guys, you deserve to be here. And then of course we have Undertaker, who's become the Hall of Fame inductee spokesperson now. I'm totally okay with that. That's actually kind of cool. But I think there was some backstage heat between the two men in Demolition and WWE or WWF that they finally were able to kind of part ways. And we got Warrior in. Sadly, he died the day after he got in, which was so sad. Now we have Bruno Sammartino, who swore he would never join it, and he's in there, rightfully so. The man should be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. Yeah,
and there are people that are missing though.
There are people, and it kind of goes on to my next question that I have for you with the Hall of Fame, right? And I know it's every year people bring this up. Why is there not an actual Hall of Fame, like a physical one? And I know they have one in Saudi Arabia. It's not a Hall of Fame as such. It's like a permanent WWE world. Yeah. Surely having this somewhere would be more beneficial than just, we roll this out every year. Because, like, you know, when you go to Toronto, you can visit the Hockey Hall of Fame, and it's just attached to the arena. WWE have premises that they could just use. I don't know why it's not in Florida. Or even, here's the thing, in Vegas, I think the UFC have, not a Hall of Fame, but they have like a whole exhibit. I haven't had a chance to see it yet, but hopefully I will. But if they're going to invest so much money into Vegas, they could probably just build one, you know? Or in Saudi Arabia, they could build it in a week. Like, that's not even a joke. Like, they probably could just pop that up in a week. For you as a wrestling fan, do you think it's like less important because there isn't a physical one, or are you still like, yeah, it means something?
I mean, every sport has either like a Hall of Fame, and even teams, and at least here in the States they do, where they have like a Ring of Honor, or they have something physical that you can see and, you know, interact with or whatever. Why there isn't one in WWE, I'll never understand. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just something simple. Okay, we've had Hall of Fame since, what, 1990, I think was the first year they did it. And I think it was Andre the Giant was the first one in. So if you do it either in Vegas or you do it at the Performance Center,
yeah,
build nothing but, and you have more room, you know, going forward. But also they need to limit how many people they let in, because they used to do like 8 or 9 at one time, and now they're going, we're running out of people to put in the Hall of Fame. So they need to cut it down to 4 or 5. We should be happy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, there was a year where there was a couple of years where like 20 or 30 at a time or whatever.
Yeah, felt like that.
Just to try and get them in. And now they're like, oh, we're running out of people. But they can expand the net out. You know, obviously you can get some ECW guys and stuff like that. That's what I'm saying. But then you lose your marquee. You know, I think having other guys in there, and that's when you start getting your Matt and Jeff Hardys separately in, when they start running out of people to go in, and they still want to have, you know, building up the numbers, but that dilutes it a little bit. That's a whole other conversation. You know, obviously the Hardy Boys going in, that's a headliner there, right? But anyway, no.
It comes to mind too.
Who?
China.
Yeah,
By herself.
Yeah,
by herself.
Absolutely, yeah. So look, I think you're right. Putting this in Vegas, that makes the most sense. You know, if they're going to be there, like, why not just move a lot, or the Performance Center, why not just move a lot of the things that you have in storage there? Like, for me, it would be a kind of like WWE World. Like, that was one of the coolest things about WWE World in Philadelphia. They had, basically, it's a traveling museum where they just have artifacts from WWE history there. They have loads of belts, blah, 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 you know. And it is pretty cool. Like, they had a whole Bray Wyatt thing. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. To put that as a destination where it's like, right, you can go to the Hall of Fame, see all the bits, and then, you know, it's in a era where WWE is looking to produce revenue. I don't understand why that's not on the table, right? It's like, you have a vault that nobody can see. Literally just turn the vault public into a museum that people can go, and you can have a Hall of Fame there. It's just, I don't understand why that's such a weird thing that WWE haven't come to yet. In an era where they're willing to spend 10 grand on a bus with Cody Rhodes. I mean, Cody can even have his you know, Stardust stuff out there. You know, I know.
They should have an exhibit with Stardust as well. I mean, if you're going to go all out, go all out. Stardust and then Cody ravishing or dashing Cody Rhodes. I mean, have all the faces of Cody at this point.
Damaged Cody with the mask. Yeah. Anyway, look, so the time we have left, we're going to hop in the time machine. We're going all the way back to where it all began. And look, as I said, this is a show that I haven't seen end to end before. I don't really know why, but it's 1985, 31st. So we're recording this for 4 days out of when it happened from New York, Madison Square Gardens. The greatest wrestling event of all time was the tagline. That's a lie. But, you know, it was the first, and that is worth something in and of itself. Look, this, for me, I'll let you jump in now in a minute. For me, this is a show that was important for what it was, but also kind of set the tone for what WrestleMania is supposed to be. You know, you had your special guest referees, you had your celebrities, and you had your matches, which a lot of them weren't good. Some of them were very good. And, you know, it really did set the blueprint for WrestleMania going forward, which they never actually really strayed from. It is interesting that, you know, we have 9 matches, But really, you can pare this down to 4 matches that are watchable, one that's kind of worth it. Christopher, am I off base with this, or what do you think?
And for somebody who lived through this was new. He hadn't even had Starrcade yet at this point, if I'm not mistaken. And
yeah, Starrcade was the answer to
WrestleMania.
WrestleMania in December.
This was, and again, prior to this, it was all territories. Everywhere in the States had territories, and this man, Junior, not Senior, was the first one to go, hey, let me take this person from here, and put them all in one big melting pot and have one promotion, or say with travel and all that stuff. And I mean, I remember at the time it's still a big deal. I just, going back and watching it 40 years later, I'm just sitting there going, wow, I was really impressed back then. Not so much anymore. But again, they've gotten more extravagant over the years. So you really can't fault for what they did back in 85. It was a great show for what it was.
Yeah, it's like when you go back and you play like a Pong. Go back and play Pong. Like, there's a cool exhibit in London right now, and it's a 10-year exhibit. It's in the Science Museum. And you can literally go and play every single console, every single computer, every single gaming, you name it, they have it, right? Everything you want, right? Not all the games, obviously, because that's genuinely impossible. But you can play an Atari, you can play whatever, right? And it's very cool. It's in the Science Museum. If you're in London, definitely go to it, right? It's $10 for all day. This feels like that. I actually got to play Pong for the first time ever. Like, I've seen it in a cabinet, but I never actually got to play it. And when you play Pong, you're like, tennis, right? It's 1 or 2 pixels, or like a couple of
two bars and a ball, and that's all you got.
A couple of dozen pixels, yeah. So 2 bars and a ball, going back up. And it doesn't look like much, because it isn't. However, if it wasn't for Pong, there wouldn't be what we have now, right? And that's kind of what this is too. That proved that not only video games were successful and there was a market for it, but kind of set up a framework to how to get it into home consoles, how to get it in front of people, right? And that's kind of what WrestleMania did as well. It was a proof of concept going, look, you can have this big show from people from different territories, and also we can sell it on pay-per-view, or we can do closed circuit, we can put it in cinemas, blah, blah, blah. It really set the groundwork for what WWE would eventually become. So, I would say, is it worth watching? Absolutely, because you kind of know what you're going to get, but you also don't. And I think that's the bit that most shocked me. I was just like, oh, it's going to be very dated, and it's not going to be very good, and blah, blah, blah. But that's not really true. I enjoyed the main event a lot more than I thought it would. Like, it's not a match. It's a pop culture smod, But that's kind of fun. Like, Mr. T obviously isn't going to go in there and wrestle, and Piper and all enough for the 2 lads that probably put his match together. But Hogan in there is, he's in there to really put this over. So that surprised me again. And I'm not a Hogan fan.
Yeah, neither am I.
I really liked the title change with Volkov and the Iron Sheik. That was cool. The crowd just been like, oh my God, what's going on? You really get the sense when you're watching this that they don't really know what's going on. They're kind of on pins and needles. Yeah. Look, obviously you have a pretty short but decent Steamboat match. But like, when you go in and watch this, I would just say, look, this is slow. This is very, very, very dated, but definitely worth your time. Just relax and just watch it for what it is. There's not really much more.
It's sad when the commentary team is the most exciting thing on the show.
That's true. That's true. But again, like,
Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse the Body.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But then again, like, what are you going to do? Like, there's no one else there was nothing else like this. They were literally on uncharted territory the whole way. Yep. Yeah, Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse is great. Like, the Body has always been a phenomenal commentator, but at the same time, it's like, without this show being a success, there's no WWE, there's no like WrestleMania, there's no WWE, there's probably no wrestling. Wrestling will still be territories, for better or worse.
I did find it funny that in the main event with Hulk Hogan and Mr. T, that Mr. T and Hulk Hogan were in Rocky 3.
Yes, they were.
At the same movie that Hulk Hogan did the movie and told Vince Sr., hey, I'm going to do this movie. And he was told, if you do it, you're fired. He did it anyway, and he got fired. Like a year later, Vince was like, hey, I have an idea. I want you to be the guy, the face of the company. So like a year later when Vince Jr. bought the company and brought Hulk Hogan back into it, I just thought that was kind of cool that those two worked together in a match, and then they they weren't in the movie together per se. It was in two different scenes, but it's the fact that there's like that Rocky connection between that and WrestleMania 1.
No, well, that's but that's the thing. Like celebrities, people badmouth it in WWE now, but it really is like part of its DNA. Like in this, you don't only have that, which set up the main event, but you have Phil Collins, Cyndi Lauper, Billy Martin, Muhammad Ali, as we said. Like it's kind of wall to wall celebrities. Even Liberace is there, which was weird. Cyndi Lauper was there. She was involved in the Wendy Ricker match. Yeah, it was the Rock and Wrestling connection. So like, it really is just one of those shows where I would say that when people are watching wrestling, watching WWE, and they're going, "Oh my God, there's too many celebrities." Like, there's always been celebrities. It's like that meme, you know. There's too many celebrities in wrestling. It's like, and then your man's there with the gun behind him, going, "Always was." So it's it's just one of those things where you're like, "Yeah, man. I mean, it always kind of was that." You know, like. That's the thing. WrestleMania really isn't the show for wrestling fans. It's a show for
everybody.
Yeah, for everybody, for the pop culture. And it's
just like the Super Bowl is not for football fans. It's for everybody.
Yeah, that's very true. Very, very true. It's the only time that, even in Ireland, you would hear people talking about the Super Bowl, talk about American football. It's because Super Bowl's on. Exactly. So yeah, man, look, as I said, good pick. I'll be honest with you, I won't be rushing back to watch it. Soon. But it is extremely average as far as WrestleMania, but the main event, pretty decent, undercard, but it really is one of those things where if this wasn't a successful show, there would be nothing else. It's, as I said, I stick by my Pong analogy, where it's like, yeah, Pong's super important, it really is, but...
That's spot on too, by the way.
Thank you.
That's spot on accurate.
Thank you. I think it really does work. Like, you're not going to rush to play Pong, but you need a respect for what it did. But yeah, that's it. That's where we are this week. Again, folks, thank you so much for checking us out. Christopher, is there anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Yes, I now have both of my podcasts on one channel on YouTube. Just search Real Zodiac Productions. That is the name of my production company now. You can find both the Zodiac podcast and the movie review podcast on there. The link should be down below as well.
Fantastic. And folks, if you like what we do here, and you're checking us out on Phoenix, if you're checking us out on YouTube, please do go over to Nerdflow Media, subscribe to the show. You'll be able to comment there below if you're checking us out on a segment as well. We also appreciate it. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, all that good stuff. And we will be back next week. We're the only wrestling podcast for fans who don't hate wrestling. Talk to you later.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.